Fiber Trek, the Fleecewise vlog #1. I have been absent in this discussion for a little while, just trying to catch up on a few other projects and manage a few other professional and personal items, I guess you could say. But I decided today, I had just started spinning and I thought, well, I'll just make that all happen with the vlog and starting to spin the fleece that the Fleecewise gals purchased at Rhinebeck. I know that my compadres, Emily of Fibertown, Sarah of Yarns at Yenhu, and Claire of New Hampshire Knits have discussed their experience thus far. And I believe Emily and Sarah both talked about the type of fleece that we are spinning, that it's a Shetland fleece, and some of the nuances of working with Shetland and primitive breeds and etc. So I'm going to let them kind of carry that technical conversation. I have actually gone a bit rogue with my spinning, and that's kind of going to be the topic for today's vlog a little bit. So I kind of harkened back to where I started spinning and how I learned to spin. Instead of going technical and calculating twists per inch and really focusing on the crimp and sample cards and breed, I kind of just went with the fleece and didn't get too wrapped up in the outcome of the yarn. I know, it's kind of like the antithesis of what I've been doing a little bit with my spinning. So let me just tell you a little bit about my spinning and how I started and why I feel that this is representative of those kind of roots in the craft. So when I first started spinning, I got a wheel and then I didn't spin on it for 2 years because I just couldn't handle it. I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't create perfect yarn. It was the lumpy, bumpy, beautiful art yarn that we all strive to do now, right? And upon arriving in Maine, I bought my wheel when I was living in Vermont, but upon arriving in Maine, I was the director of education for a large nonprofit farm, and I was starting the program there. It was a brand new farm, and they'd hired me to start this program, and I was very interested in sheep, and so we got a flock of Icelandics, and I took the first fleeces that came off those animals raw, and put them through a drum carder and spun that. I didn't wash it, and I didn't do anything to it. Dual coat, threw it on, bats onto the wheel. And I was able to finally achieve a yarn that made me happy. Made my internal perception of perfection. I could see it. So I learned to spin in the grease on Icelandics, and I'm sorry for the interruption, just managing other household members. So I can't remember where I was, but I was working on Icelandic fiber, spinning it in the grease. It was really easy to control and to manage because it had a little bit of grip to it, and I could manage my draft zone much easier. Of course, it was a long fiber, so I had a lot of luck with spinning in the grease and spinning a long wool, perfecting my drafting and ability to control the uptake on the wheel I was using. I learned to spin on a Louette S10, and I have since, I sold that wheel to a friend who still has it and still spins Icelandic on it. I sold that wheel and upgraded to a Lendrum on my 30th birthday. So that's kind of where my roots started, and I thought for this project I would go there. Eloise is a Shetland, so she has some throwback to the Icelandic that I worked with. You can see it kind of here in this right there. That kind of reminds me a little bit of Icelandic, right? But she is a shorter stapled fiber, and primarily what I've run into, and I didn't evaluate my fleece when I got it. I just, as you'll see, I'll just chucked it into the wash. I haven't seen any remnants of a dual coat here. So here's an example of a lock. Beautiful gray, light gray, kind of a rosy gray, browny gray color. And my method to madness was I just did 2 hot washes with this, and I did some squeegeing. I kind of picked it up and squeezed hot water through. The first time round it was pretty dirty. The water was pretty brown. And the second time it was clearer, and then I just threw it on a screen in front of the wood stove and had it dry. And now I'm just going to spin it. I'm not going to hand prep it in any way except to grab locks, and I'm going to do something called spinning from the fold. So I take a lock, and then I'm just wrapping it around my finger, and I'm spinning from here. And what this does is it creates a little bit more loft in your yarn because those fibers are folded, and so they're looking to find their original state. It's the only way I can get into physics, right, is when we talk about this. And so it's going to just create a little bit more fluff in the yarn that I'm producing. And I'm not really paying attention to where the blood end is or the tip is, and off I go. So I have started to spin a little bit here, and I don't think I'm gonna take this off the wheel, but I'll be able to show some samples perhaps in the next vlog. I would like to make a pretty good dent in the 10 ounces I had. So I started with 11 ounces thereabout, and I ended up after washing with around 10 5/8 ounces. And sorry, I just dropped something. So my yields, because I didn't scour this, may feel different than somebody who did scour it and lost some of that grease that's weighing this down. It doesn't smell bad, and in fact, it doesn't even smell like lanolin. I have a little bit of residue on my hands, which I'm actually enjoying, and so far I have thoroughly enjoyed spinning this fleece. I do have a set of hand cards out just in case I want to open up some tips. So for example, you end up with a tip like this. I don't know, how's that going to do? I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of a manky bit here, and the tip's kind of clustered together. I might use just a hand card or a dog brush to flick that open, or I might just not bother with it at all. So I believe the yarn's going to have a bit of a rustic quality to it, and when I use the word rustic, I guess I mean, that's not the word I really want to use. It's just going to have, I'm hoping it will kind of embody a true woolen spun. So I'm really trying to keep keep the web open. I'm trying to let the spin enter this section of my spinning without pinching it off and drafting. So I'm really trying to just keep that open, letting that twist enter into these fibers as I'm drafting out. I'm spinning this on my shocked sidekick. I'm spinning it on the largest ratio. So I'm getting, so for every, do I have it written on there? No, sometimes I write my ratios on there. But yeah, so I've got big, big, big. And how I will end up applying this is unknown, whether I will throw it into a chain ply or if I will just do a 2-ply. I'm a big fan of the 3-ply. I think it has more durability. So lots of interruptions. My card was full. I can't remember what I was talking about, and my yarn is over there. So I think I was talking about my love of 3-plies for garment wear. And depending on how much I get out of this, I'm thinking if I use it as a 3-ply, I could use it as an accent in a sweater or on the cuffs of a sleeve, etc. So some decision making to be made about my yarn structure. But I am thinking about, on my radar, when I think about themes for this yarn, I think about woolen, I think about loft, and so that's what I'm trying to achieve in kind of a cowgirl, roguey kind of way. Just a little background on this particular fleece, and some reflective thoughts. We bought the fleece at Rhinebeck, and we paid somewhere around $80 for it. It wasn't 3 pounds. It was close to 3 pounds. And I think in that moment we were kind of like, there's 4 of us. It's a project. Let's see what happens when you buy an $80 fleece and what your outcomes can be. That's probably more than I would pay for a fleece. As Emily pointed out in her Fleecewise video, I typically average $12 a pound to $15 a pound for fleeces. But to be honest with you, as I get to know breeders in the state and breeders around the US, I don't really feel like I need to go to the fleece tent to purchase fleeces. And I like going directly to farms and working with particular breeders and farmers and shepherds and shepherdesses. And because of that, I don't find myself in the fleece tent. And I would encourage you, if you have a specific interest in a particular breed, or if you're connected to a particular landscape and you want to spin something from that, I would check out and contact somebody directly and see what your prices come back. You know, of course you have to consider shipping. If it's local to you, of course you can pick it up. But that's just a few thoughts. So for me, as I become more aware of what's available and my resources, I'm just directly buying what I want. And I think too, when I think about breeds, I would be so purist, traditional, as to try to source it from its original locale. And that's not to say that I don't feel like you can get amazing fleeces from the United States that are, you know, breeds that are originating in Scotland. But for me, part of the fun is the research of finding that farm and spinning Hebridean wool from the Hebrides, right? That's that kind of magic. Now, that being said, it also can come down to relationship with particular farms that you have and relationships that you have with particular breeds. So I think there's a lot of fun ways to get involved with fleece buying, the fleece tent being one of them. But I think as you expand your resources and your connections and your relationships, the sky's the limit, you know. Stansborough Grey from New Zealand, how exciting is that? I remember Lori Dubois sent me a sample of Stansborough Grey fleece that she bought from New Zealand, and that's very magical to kind of pull that landscape in. If you're not familiar with the Stansborough Grey, that is the breeds in New Zealand that originated in New Zealand, and they used all of that fiber for the Lord of the Rings in the woven cloaks, etc., for that particular series. And that is its own breed, and they have a really interesting website, and they do really interesting work from the farming to the weaving. And it's a Gotland genetic origination, but it is, I believe, its own breed. It's qualified as its own characteristics and conformations. So anyway, that's just a little tangent about some things I've been thinking about for fleece. And as I kind of refine more and more what's important to me, and also what I'm willing to pay for, you know, this project has been so awesome in pulling that out and helping me narrow my focus, if I want to be narrow, or just really think about what is important about this medium. And, you know, and I think for me it is about the community and connecting with that actual producer and that actual landscape. So just a few thoughts. Those could change. I'm open to discourse, and I am open to changing my mind on this particular issue. But anyway, that's the fun I've been having with Eloise the sheep. I think I've given you all the technical information. Again, I'm really just wanting this to kind of be a really easy isn't the right word. I just want it to be smooth, and so I'm like, you know what, this is what I have time for. And I also want to think about the person who just wants to interact with the material, right? Like, just wash it. You don't have to scour it. You don't have to heat it to 120 degrees. You don't have to, you know, you can do all those things. You can get a specific product, but you can also wash it in hot water, pull it out, throw it in your washer, put it on the spin cycle, throw it on a screen, and just grab locks and start spinning. So you can think about that product, but if you just want to interact with the material, it can really be a simplified process. And did I mention I squidged this, like in the water? I went, like that. Only like 3 times, but I moved water through it and then I let it sit for 20 minutes. Pulled it, filled my tank again, let it sit for 20 minutes. And if I'd been smart, although I was really interested in using my new utility sink in my new bathroom, and I would have probably just heated hot water and put it in my washing machine and throw the fleece in there and drain it, spin it, fill it again, throw the fleece in, drain it, spin it, be done with it. But I'm really enjoying the outcome. This fleece was particularly clean. My perception was that it was particularly clean and free of vegetative matter. I haven't found a lot of second cuts in it per se, but I do get to go through this fleece by hand because I'm just grabbing locks. So I can kind of manage some of those pitfalls a little bit with the type of spinning that I'm doing. So anyway, I am going to continue to spin from the fold as I demonstrated before. I'll try to get this edited in a way that feels, somewhat smooth. There's that word again. And not disjointed or disjuncted, disjointed, I don't know. And I'm going to record a podcast, so I'll see you there. And if you're watching the Clementine made me do it, I'm going to try and get one of those out today too. So I will hopefully see you somewhere in that making zone. And I hope that wherever you are, you're in good spirits and doing well.